But again, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm so glad for the Wellness Committee for putting on this entire awesome fair. Thank you so much again to our local vendors. We really appreciate your support and helping us to be a very healthy place for our students and our employees. So again, thank you all. Thank you all. My name is Josh Guest. I am the Director of Human Resources here at Klamath Community College. There was a gap in the speaking schedule 3 days ago, and so I got this spot. That's my credentials. So I've established my credentials. So you know what I'm telling you is going to be true. Overqualified. That there was a spot available, and I took it. And Erica was too nice to say no. The text from, again, the title of my remarks is called Know Thyself, Setting Yourself Up for a Happy and a Healthy Career. And I should start off again with the first disclaimer that you really can't make happiness your objective in your career. Okay? Now, this is from Viktor Frankl. He was a logotherapist. He's a survivor of the concentration camps during World War II. And he said, and he worked with fellow prisoners in the camp and helping them to find meaning in their struggles. You know, it was an awful existence. And you can't, again, he says, don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a course greater than oneself. So I'd like to talk today about a little bit of how you can make happiness ensue.
Just probably because you keep walking out of frame.
I keep walking out of frame. That's not a problem with me. That's the frame's problem. But so happiness and success in a career, I like to compare it to a flower. If anyone's ever tried to plant flowers, grow flowers in your yard or anywhere else, you can't really just will a flower. You can't, like, you see a little budding up and you can't just kind of pull it up and make it into a flower. You see the petals, you can't just pull on the petals to make it become a big blooming flower. Really the best thing you can hope for is to make conditions that are conducive to florals, to flowers flowering. Okay, so I'd like again to talk about how can you put yourself in a position where your career is just flowers into a happy and successful career. How can you do that? Well, again, let's talk a little bit about some of the sources of happiness. I saw over here at the library table, they have a book by Martin Seligman. He's kind of the authority on how to be happy. Again, aiming at happiness is a fool's game, but we still study it nevertheless because that's what intellectuals like to do. They like to study things that people just do naturally. And he talks about some of the 5 elements of a happy life in general. Positive emotions, being in engagement, or finding a state of flow in your work. And so when you are in a flow state at work, the great flow scholar named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who's just retired pretty recently down in California, he talks about when you're engaged in your work, it's something that you have a challenging piece of work to do. It's challenging, it's difficult to do, but it's not impossible. And there's just a dollop of pressure. Again, so you can't quite exactly make your boss give you the right amount of pressure or know that the work that you're doing is challenging. But then again, you can look for opportunities to be challenged, but not too much. And to be okay with a little bit of pressure, because really it's going to put you in this state of flow where time seems to stand still. You enjoy the work. You would do it even if you weren't being paid to do it. Getting that engagement is conducive to happiness. Next is your relationships. And this is kind of actually, I should say that the relationships that you have in your work are not quite as important as your other relationships. Again, so I had to give this disclaimer, like finding happiness and success in your job is not so much as important as just having your whole life be in balance. Like if you have, one author put it this way, like if you could win an Oscar, but knew that you had a stinky home life, which would you choose? Would you rather have just a regular happy home life and not be famous with an Oscar? What would you choose? We probably would say, I want the happy home life, and that is the correct answer. Like no matter if you have a happy family life and your career stinks, you will still be reasonably happy. But if you are the most successful, famous athlete or movie star in the world and your home life stinks, you will be miserable. So you got to take care of those relationships. And again, another one is one study, I think the book was called Bowling Alone. I think it was called Bowling Alone, something like that. There was a study about what makes people happy. And it turns out, and you can compare what things cause people to feel happy or report happiness. And it turns out, if you have a group that you meet with once a month, on a monthly basis, that gives you just as much happiness as doubling your salary. So again, if you're trying to find a way to be happier, you could ask your boss for a 100% raise, or you could join a book club, join a service group. You could join the Beekeepers Association. You can go to a church. If you're just meeting with some friends once a month, that will be as happy as doubling your salary. Pretty cool. It's science. Again, finding meaning, attaching yourself to a cause that is greater than you. There's the story about there's a story about JFK, John F. Kennedy, going to the NASA Space Center, and he saw one of the employees, a custodian, who was mopping the floor, and he asked the custodian, "What are you doing?" And the story goes that he says, "Mr. President, I'm helping to put a man on the moon." If you can find in whatever you do a larger group, if you find meaning in it, you will be probably happier. And finally, achievement. Whatever you're doing, if you're doing it better and better, if you can solve problems, you'll be happier. And I'll talk a little bit more about achieving. Next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, out in Greek, the Oracle of Delphi, there was a few inscriptions, the legend goes, and the ancient Greeks were fond of one of those sayings, which was to know thyself. Come on now. There it is. Know thyself. Why is it important to know yourself? Well, because it turns out that all of us, we are strangers to ourselves. We really don't know what's going to make us happy. We don't really know what we're even that good at. We don't know, we are poor predictors of what's going to bring us happiness. You can see it all the time. Well, there's just a few cognitive biases that have been documented by scientists. Most people believe that they are better than average at most of the things that they do. Some of us don't, but again, most men think they have above average looks. And most women believe that on dating websites, this is a thing. Most men rate themselves as above average, and women actually think most men are below average. So might be true, but okay. But there's all kinds of additional cognitive biases that show that, again, we are strangers to ourselves. We'd have no idea what's going on inside our own heads. Again, the intention-behavior gap, again, when we say, I am going to eat well, we say, I prefer healthy food. We all may say that. We may believe that we want healthy food, but we really don't. We like high-fat, high-sugar, salty foods. Again, we have the hot-cold empathy gap that shows we really don't know how we're going to act in a state of temptation. We assume that we'll behave well in a moment of temptation, but really we have no idea just how badly we will behave when pressure is on, when temptation hits. Again, hard-easy effect. We overestimate how easy a difficult task will be. We have biased blind spots. We overestimate just how objective we are. We think everyone else has biases, but we have a good handle on things. We know what's what. We know what's so. I got 6 minutes left. But anyway, there's a lot out there. One famous behavioral scientist named Daniel Kahneman, he won the Nobel Prize for economics. His great book is Thinking Fast and Slow. And he said, again, you have no choice but to accept that these studies are true, but they're not just true, they're true about you. The old G.I. Joe saying is, knowing is half the battle. Knowing that you're ignorant about yourself is half the battle. Although there's also what's called the G.I. Joe fallacy, and thinking that just because I know that there's something wrong with me doesn't mean that I've won half the battle. But that's beside the point. That's not yet documented in science. Next slide, please. So I want to talk just a little bit about the last moments that I have is how you can take an inventory of yourself to know yourself better. Alcoholics Anonymous has the 12-step program, and the fourth one is take a rigorous moral inventory. Rigorous. You need to really, 10th. Is the 10th? Pretty sure it's the 4th. Anyway, it's got to be early on. Okay, at some point you have to take inventory, take stock of what you have. So let's go to I want to just point out a few tools that are available to you. You can find free versions of these online, including the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, to see just how much are you a thinker versus a feeler. Do you sense, or are you intuitive? Are you a judger, or are you a perceiver? Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? And you may actually be surprised whether you're extroverted versus introverted. You may not even know. Some people may appear very extroverted, but deep down, they are energized by alone time. And there's probably people who are definitely energized by others, but really, they do not prefer to be alone. Me, I like to pretend that I'm happy right here, but in honesty, I'd rather be, puttering around in the garden quietly, safe with an audiobook. That's what I'd like. I'm getting so tired just talking. Next one. Another good one. Okay, this is my favorite. This is my favorite test. Well, it's my second favorite test. I'm getting to the last one. The big 5 personality traits. You can take these. Again, there's paid ones you can take, and there's free ones you can take. And again, understanding, how do you rate on openness? How do you rate on conscientiousness? Your ability to follow through with your duty, to do difficult tasks. How do you rate on extroversion? How energized are you by others? Checking how agreeable you are. Again, how open are you to playing well with others? Do you play well, or do you say no? Do you know how to say no? And finally, neuroticism. What is your sensitivity to negative feelings? And one thing I'll just say is that once you kind of know where you are, as a little confession, I rate incredibly low on conscientiousness. I am very irresponsible. And so what can you do about that? How can you increase your conscientiousness? You can structure your life around what will make you a more productive person. You can start making yourself calendar better, to kind of setting up your calendar so that way when you are at your best and most alert, that's when you're doing your important work, your deep work. And again, on agreeableness, I rate pretty high on agreeableness. So I've kind of practiced on saying no on things that I don't have to say no to, just to get better at saying no. And you may make things harder at home, but you will be happier if you can kind of understand where your big 5 personality types are, and then you can kind of build your personal growth plan around those. And the last one I'm going to point out, the last test, is the Strengths Finder test, the Clifton Strengths Finder. I've got 4 copies here. You can take a little test online, and it will tell you what your 5 biggest strengths are. And you can, again, I highly recommend taking this, looking at it, and then working with your teammates. Everyone in your team, if you're part of a team, can enjoy knowing just what you do really well and knowing what others do well. You will be happier as you build on each other's strengths, as you do tasks that are suited to you. I would like to say that I'm a maximizer or an intellection person. I'm not. Or an individuator. I'm not. My wife is an individuator. She is great at picking out gifts for others. Again, maximizer, she only plays games that she can win. I'm not like that. I love to lose. I'm okay with losing. My strengths include being an includer. I like just making the circle bigger, even if we are just a big bunch of losers. I don't mind that. That's where I get happiness. So, anyway, come get I got 4 copies free for anyone who wants to take the test. Get back to me. Tell me about your strengths. I'd love to discuss. All right, I've got 1 minute to go. Anyway, back to where we started. Again, you cannot force happiness. You can position yourself for happiness, again, by making sure that you are doing work where you're engaged, that's suited to your strengths, and using your strengths in your relationships. And again, in attaching yourself to those large causes that give you meaning. For us, it's easy when we're here at Klamath Community College. We are in the business of perfecting our neighbors. Any old neighbor who wants to come in can come to KCC. We're very proud of that. I find meaning in that. So, to conclude, one more. Again, I wanted to back to that idea about meaning. Doing something that's meaningful, even if it's tough, it's difficult. The old Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore said, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service or duty. And then I acted, and behold, service or duty was a joy." I can tell you, you will have joy as you do difficult, challenging, but not impossible tasks that are meaningful to you. Anyway, that's my speech. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.